The basketball world has been thrown into absolute chaos as shocking new rumors erupt around Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. According to viral gossip threads and explosive social media chatter, a so-called leaked video is making the rounds online, allegedly showing Caitlin in an intimate moment with a teammate. Fans are stunned. Critics are circling. And the WNBA has suddenly found itself at the center of a scandal nobody saw coming. It all began with cryptic posts on fan forums, quickly spreading across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. What was first? Dismissed as nonsense snowballed when screenshots and blurred clips were allegedly leaked, sparking wild claims of a hidden relationship inside the Fever locker room. Within hours, hashtags like #ClarkLeak, #FeverScandal, and #WNBA secrets were trending worldwide. Supporters rushed to Caitlin's defense, insisting the so-called footage was fake or taken out of context. Others, however, demanded answers, with some saying this was the biggest off-court controversy the league has ever seen. In the middle of it all, Caitlin herself has remained silent, refusing to confirm or deny anything, leaving the internet in a frenzy. So the question is this a smear campaign, a shocking truth, or just another internet wildfire? The scandal didn't start with an official statement, didn't even start with a credible source, began in the shadows of the internet, on a late-night sports gossip forum where an anonymous user claimed to have proof of a private video involving Caitlin Clark and one of her Indiana Fever teammates. At first, nobody paid attention. The post was vague, unverified, and seemed like the kind of baseless chatter that comes and goes without notice. But then came the screenshots, blurry, pixelated, and impossible to authenticate. The images claimed to show Caitlin in a moment far removed from the spotlight of the basketball court. That was all it took. Within hours, the screenshots spread across Twitter and TikTok, igniting a firestorm of speculation. Fans who had idolized Caitlin as the face of women's basketball suddenly found themselves caught in a whirlpool of rumors. Some dismissed it immediately as a hoax. Others insisted it was real, pointing to facial features and body language in the grainy clips. Hashtags like #ClarkLeak, #FeverScandal, and #LockerRoomSecrets began trending globally, fueling a frenzy that stretched far. Beyond the WNBA, supporters were quick to push back. This is clearly fake. One fan wrote on Twitter, earning thousands of likes. Another added, they're trying to tear down Caitlin because she's too successful. But for every voice of defense, there was another demanding answers. One viral tweet read, "If this is true, it changes everything for the WNBA." The speculation was endless, and the silence from Caitlin herself only made things worse. The sports media machine pounced immediately. Talk shows devoted entire segments to the alleged leak, with anchors debating the authenticity of the footage and what it might mean for Caitlin's career. One commentator asked, "Is this an invasion of privacy, or is it the biggest scandal in women's basketball history?" Another added, "Caitlin Clark isn't just any player, she's the face of the league. If this is real, it's seismic." And it wasn't just sports outlets. Celebrity gossip blogs joined in, treating Caitlin like the newest reality TV star, embroiled in scandal. Headlines screamed, from court to controversy, Caitlin Clark caught in leaked video storm, and WNBA's Golden Girl faces shocking allegations. Meme accounts had a field day, overlaying her basketball highlights with dramatic captions like "she shoots, she scores." But not just on the court. The internet turned the rumor into entertainment. Whether it was real or not, her Indiana Fever teammates were suddenly dragged into the spotlight. Speculation swirled about which teammate was allegedly in the video, with fans analyzing every high-five, hug, and sideline interaction for clues. One clip from a recent game showing Caitlin laughing with a teammate was reshared thousands of times with captions like, "Was this the chemistry everyone missed?" Reporters hounded players with invasive questions, but most brushed them off with lines like, "We're focused on basketball." Still, their silence only added to the intrigue. Sponsors watched nervously. Caitlin Clark is not just a player, she's a brand, a multi-million-dollar figurehead for women's sports. Would this controversy tarnish her image, or would it paradoxically make her an even bigger cultural figure? One major brand posted a cryptic tweet reading, "Privacy matters. Respect athletes as people first." Fans debated whether it was a subtle defense of Caitlin or a general statement to protect their image. Either way, corporations were clearly bracing for impact. Then came the alleged clip, a 7-second video, heavily blurred and obviously low quality, was uploaded anonymously to Twitter before being taken down within minutes. But in today's world, a few minutes is all it takes. The video spread faster than wildfire, re-uploaded dozens of times across platforms. Some claimed it was definitive proof. Co-notes dismissed it as a deepfake, pointing out inconsistencies. But the damage was done. The rumor had gone from whispers to a global scandal. Emotions ran high. Supporters filled her comment sections with love, urging her to stay strong and calling the leak a disgusting violation. Critics, meanwhile, piled on with cruel jokes and mocking memes. The division was stark, but the attention was undeniable. Caitlin Clark was no longer just trending for basketball greatness, she was trending for scandal. Through all of it, Caitlin herself remained silent. No Instagram story, no press release, no denial, no confirmation. That silence became the loudest noise of all. In the absence of her voice, the internet created its own narrative. Some believed her silence was dignity choosing not to feed the circus. Others saw it as confirmation that there was something to hide by the end of the first week. Caitlin Clark's alleged leaked video had grown into one of the most talked about controversies in sports. Fans were divided. The media was obsessed. The league was anxious. And Caitlin, she stood at the center of it all, a storm swirling around her. Her next move, the only thing anyone wanted to see. The question lingered. Was this the cruelest smear campaign against a rising superstar? Or was the internet staring down the biggest personal revelation in WNBA history? One thing was certain, the Caitlin Clark everyone thought they knew had just stepped into a whole new spotlight. If the first week of the Caitlin Clark scandal was chaos online, the second week was all about the ripple effect, because the moment a superstar's private life is pulled into the public arena, it doesn't just affect the athlete. It affects their family, their teammates, their league, and even the culture around them. Reporters swarmed Caitlin's hometown in Iowa, eager to get a word from her parents. Neighbors described the Clark family as close-knit and private, but that didn't stop speculation. One local news outlet captured a brief clip of her father walking into their home, refusing to comment, but looking visibly rattled. Fans immediately flooded social media, analyzing his expression as if it were courtroom evidence. He's protecting her, some wrote. Others speculated about disappointment. The truth didn't matter. The internet had already decided this. Was a family drama playing out behind closed doors? Her siblings weren't spared either. One of them, usually inactive on social media, liked a post under the trending hashtag #WeStandWithCaitlin. And screenshots of that spread instantly. Fans treated it as a sign of solidarity. Our family's got her back. A viral tweet read, earning thousands of retweets. Another sibling was spotted at a Fever game, clapping enthusiastically from the stands again. Fans dissected the footage as proof of loyalty, but the real tension bubbled inside the Indiana Fever locker room. Teammates were suddenly asked invasive questions before and after games. One guard snapped at a reporter saying, "We're here to talk about basketball." Another gave a cold smile and said, "No comment," a phrase that only fueled speculation further. A video clip of Caitlin sharing a brief hug with a teammate during warm-ups was reposted endlessly with captions like, "Is this the teammate?" From the video, Every interaction, no matter how innocent, was dissected under a magnifying glass. Behind the scenes, insiders whispered about awkwardness creeping into practices. Anonymous sources claimed the team is divided, with some players feeling the scandal was a distraction while others stood firmly behind Caitlin. Whether true or exaggerated, the leaks painted a picture of a locker room under siege not from opponents on the court, but from the storm outside it. The WNBA itself couldn't avoid the controversy. League officials released a carefully worded statement: "We respect the privacy of all our athletes. Any alleged invasion of personal life through unauthorized videos is unacceptable." It was vague enough to avoid confirming anything, but pointed enough to sound like damage control. Critics blasted the league for being too soft, while supporters praised them for taking a stand on privacy. Either way, the statement only deepened the drama by making it clear the league was paying attention. Sponsors weighed in next. One beverage company that had signed Caitlin to a multi-million-dollar endorsement deal posted, "Great athletes inspire on the court. Great people inspire off it. We stand with Caitlin Clark." The message went viral, drawing both applause and accusations of opportunism. Another major brand, however, went silent, scrubbing Caitlin-related ads from its social media for several days before finally reposting them later, sparking wild rumors that they had briefly considered cutting ties. The cultural debate ignited, full force. Advocacy groups praised Caitlin for supposedly living authentically, even if she hadn't confirmed anything herself. Representation matters, one LGBTQ+ group declared in a widely shared statement. On the other hand, conservative commentators blasted her alleged involvement in the video, framing it as a distraction and a bad influence on young fans. Talk shows debated whether athletes should keep their personal lives private, or if being in the spotlight meant every secret was fair game. Hollywood and celebrity culture piled on too. A popular actress tweeted, "Privacy is a right, even for superstars. Leave Caitlin alone." Meanwhile, a famous rapper joked during a podcast, "The Fever got more drama off the court than on it." Clips of that joke went viral, turning into TikTok sounds used in thousands of memes. Through it all, Caitlin herself stayed silent. She played her games with laser focus, dropping points as if nothing had changed. In one matchup, she drilled a long three-pointer, then let out a fierce yell, pounding her chest. Fans immediately rebranded it as her statement game, with captions like, "She's not just surviving the scandal, she's owning it." That clip became one of the most replayed highlights of the season, blending sports glory with scandalous undertones. Yet the silence also made the tension unbearable. Reporters peppered her with questions, but she dodged them, always bringing the conversation back to basketball. "I'm focused on helping my team," she said in one post-game presser. But her expression, half smile, half stone, was analyzed endlessly. Was she hiding something? Was she furious at the invasion of privacy? Or was she simply refusing to give the circus more fuel? Meanwhile, the supposed video itself continued to circulate in corners of the internet, re-uploaded after every takedown. Deepfake experts began weighing in, some arguing it could easily be fabricated, others saying certain details looked too specific to fake. The debate over authenticity became its own subplot, dragging Caitlin's name deeper into headlines. By the end of the second week, one thing was clear: the scandal was no longer just about a video. It was about trust, privacy, identity, and the way the internet consumes its heroes. Caitlin Clark was at the center of a maelstrom that blended sports, gossip, and cultural warfare, and whether she liked it or not, her next move would shape not only her career, but the way the world remembered her. Was this the cruelest invasion of privacy in women's sports history? Or was it the unmasking of a personal truth Caitlin had never spoken aloud? Fans, critics, and the league itself were divided. But one reality was undeniable: the Caitlin Clark saga had become bigger than basketball. By the third week, the Caitlin Clark scandal had evolved into something much larger than the supposed video itself. What had started as grainy screenshots on obscure forums had snowballed into an unstoppable cultural storm. And at its center was a young superstar who never asked to be the headline of a global controversy. Yet, the more Caitlin stayed silent, the louder the world screamed for answers. The speculation reached a fever pitch during a primetime WNBA broadcast. Cameras lingered on Caitlin during warm-ups, her face locked in determination as she sank, shot after shot from deep range. Commentators couldn't help but acknowledge the elephant in the room. "There's been a lot of chatter off the court," one analyst said cautiously, but Caitlin Clark continues to show up where it matters. The broadcast cut to a fan in the stands holding a sign, "We love you, Caitlin Scandal or not." The arena roared when it appeared on the Jumbotron, though the crowd itself was declaring loyalty. But the drama reached its peak when Caitlin finally broke her silence. Sort of. After a historic 35-point performance, she faced the usual wall of reporters. One bold journalist asked directly, "Do you have anything to say about the alleged video circulating online?" The room went dead silent. Caitlin took a long pause, her eyes darting down at the microphone before she finally spoke. "Basketball is my focus. But I'll say, this being myself has never been a crime. People can think what they want, but I'm not ashamed of who I am." Those words hit like a thunderclap. No outright denial. Confirmation. Just a calm, defiant statement that reverberated across the sports world. Social media erupted instantly. Hashtags like #NotAshamed, #ClarkSpeaks, and #ProudOfCaitlin trended worldwide. Fans called it the perfect response, praising her strength in choosing authenticity over appeasement. Critics, however, seized on the ambiguity, declaring that her words were as good as admitting the rumors are true. Either way, the clip of her short, sharp statement was replayed millions of times, cementing it as one of the most iconic sound bites of her career. The impact on fans was emotional. Countless TikToks poured in of young people saying Caitlin's words gave them courage to embrace their own truths. One viral video showed a teenager in tears, saying, "If Caitlin Clark isn't ashamed, then neither am I." Another edit paired her quote with highlights of her shooting threes, captioned, "She's not just breaking records, she's breaking barriers." The response was overwhelming. Caitlin had accidentally become a beacon of representation, whether she wanted the role or not. Meanwhile, the media spun in circles. Some outlets framed her comment as heroic, a subtle coming out that would inspire millions. Others painted it as reckless, arguing that she had fanned the flames instead of putting them out. Cacachos debated endlessly. Was this Caitlin's way of reclaiming the narrative, or was it a strategic dodge to avoid a direct answer? The ambiguity kept the story alive for days, proving once again that in the world of fame, silence and subtlety can sometimes scream louder than the truth. Inside the WNBA, the response was mixed. League officials praised her resilience publicly, while privately worrying about the distraction overshadowing the season. Teammates, however, seemed emboldened. After Caitlin's statement, several players posted subtle messages of support heart emojis, rainbow flags, or simple phrases like, "Proud of you." None mentioned her name directly, but the timing was impossible to ignore. Fans compiled these posts into collages, captioning them, "The Fever stands with Caitlin." Sponsors, too, made their positions clear. The beverage company that had stood by her released a new ad repurposing Caitlin's words over footage of her training, "Not ashamed, never ashamed." The ad became a sensation, hailed as both powerful and opportunistic. Another brand, one that had stayed quiet earlier, finally broke its silence with a bland statement about respecting athletes' privacy. Fans blasted them as cowardly, contrasting their lukewarm tone with Caitlin's boldness. But perhaps the most dramatic turn came when a second alleged leak surfaced this time. An extended clip claimed to show more detail. Experts immediately jumped in, some declaring it a deepfake, others swearing it was authentic. Twitter turned into a battlefield with side-by-side comparisons, red-circled screenshots, and endless debates about technology, privacy, and truth. Caitlyn once again refused to comment directly. And in that refusal, the narrative shifted. The scandal was no longer about a video. It was about resilience, privacy, and the public's hunger to consume the private lives of its heroes. By the end of the third week, Caitlin Clark had not only survived the storm, she had been transformed by it. To some, she was the victim of a cruel invasion of privacy. To others, she was a pioneer who had used the moment to embrace authenticity. To all, she was no longer just a basketball star. She was a cultural lightning rod, a name that carried meaning far beyond the court. The question was no longer, is the video real? The question was, what does Caitlin Clark represent now? And in that question lay the true power of the scandal, not in the alleged footage, but in the way Caitlyn's presence, words, and silence forced the world to look at her differently. She was still Caitlin Clark, the superstar who sank impossible threes and electrified arenas. But now, she was also something else. A symbol, a story, a reminder that legends aren't just made in the box scores, they're made in the firestorms they survive. And so, here we are weeks after the first whispers appeared online. And Caitlin Clark is still at the center of one of the most talked about scandals in modern sports. What began as a blurry screenshot, dismissed at first as gossip, has transformed into a cultural storm that shook the WNBA, divided fans, and forced a young superstar into a spotlight she never asked for. The so-called leaked video may or may not be real. Experts argue, fans debate, and the internet refuses to let go. But in the end, maybe the footage itself doesn't even matter anymore. What matters is what Caitlyn has come to represent: resilience in the face of chaos, courage in the face of scrutiny, and authenticity in a world that constantly demands perfection. Her words, "being myself has never been a crime. I'm not ashamed of who I am," still echo across timelines, sports talk shows, and arenas. For her supporters, that single line wasn't just a response, it was a declaration. A reminder that privacy is precious, but identity is powerful. She turned what could have been her downfall into a moment of defiance, and that defiance has already inspired thousands who see themselves in her. But of course, the story isn't over. Will Caitlyn address the scandal directly in the future? Will she double down on silence, letting her game continue to speak for itself? Or will another leak push the narrative into uncharted territory? Nobody knows, Anne. Maybe that's why the fascination hasn't faded. The Caitlin Clark saga is no longer about basketball alone. It's about culture, representation, and the brutal reality of living in an age where privacy and fame collide. And that's why people can't look away. Because this isn't just a scandal, it's a symbol. Caitlin Clark has gone from WNBA rookie sensation to cultural lightning rod. And whether you cheer for her or criticize her, you can't deny one thing: she has already changed the conversation. Forever now, we want to hear from you. Do you think the so-called leaked video is real lore? Is this nothing more than a smear campaign designed to bring down a rising star? Do you believe Caitlyn's subtle words were enough to address the rumors, or does she owe fans a direct answer? And most importantly, has this saga made you see her differently, in or off the court? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'll be reading them all. Smash that like button if you think Caitlin Clark deserves to rise above this madness. Hit subscribe so you never miss the next scandal rocking the sports world, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you're always the first to know when the next shocking twist drops. Because if this story has proven anything, it's this. In today's world, legends aren't just made on the courts, they're made in the scandals, the storms, and the silence that follows.